Henriëtte Bamberg Cambridge was born in Antwerp, Belgium in 1935. She was murdered in the gas chamber in Sobibor, Poland, when she was just 8 years old. We see here the sweetness of what might have been. We see butterflies and a beautiful textured, soft teddy bear, and she's on a fence, straddling the fence. Tell us, what was your first inspiration? Why did you put her on the fence? What do butterflies signify?
Well, this is another reference to, had the immigration process not been so restrictive from the US government, that perhaps she could have moved to the United States and emulated cowgirls. She has her little cowgirl boots on, and the fence is in juxtaposition with the fences that there were in the concentration camps, the big metal, barbed wire, ominous, terrifying fences. This is a fence that she can play on and climb over. And she has her teddy bear with her as a playmate, a comfort object. And butterflies are references to freedom, to beauty, to nature.
You see Henriette, Lauren painted her sitting on a fence, right, and she can almost jump. Mm-hmm. She almost jumps. And the fence for me represented a barrier between two cultures. And my music presents two cultures. Right. One is the spiritual, and the other is a Jewish, very similar to klezmer music, yes, mm-hmm, or to prayer, or to a Jewish cry, mm-hmm, by the clarinet. Yes. So you have these two cultures, and in between you have the vibraphone, mm-hmm, and the vibraphone has a kind of a eerie sound to it, which brings the dream to it.
It's interesting you use two clarinets the bass clarinet for the spiritual, and then 3 bars of that, and you have the klezmer-like cry right after that, and then you go back to the bass clarinet and have these very busy figures doing the cry. So you go back and forth between the two, and then you have the vibraphone which ends it.
I also took a very slow tempo.
Right.
Which maybe is not suitable so much for this spiritual, but I wanted it to be played very slowly. And then comes the clarinet upstairs with the tee-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, much faster tempo.
Yeah.
And then again the bass clarinet, so slowly with the known, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. And you know, Henriette was killed, murdered, together with her mother in Sobibor. And a motherless child, for me, it was so strong to see this beautiful girl, and she perished with her mother.
Right.
But in the painting, she's alone, motherless child.
Right. And you brought up that the tempo, and just remembering, tempo is an incredibly important element in telling the story. If you go one way or the other, you tell a different story in a composition. It's not just the notes, but it's how it's played with the instrumentation, but very much the speed that you give it.
I have to point out the textural quality of the background. Often you use a brush to depict the works, but in this case, I noticed through the texture that you used a palette knife, and you worked it so in the upper third of the painting that it's highly textural. And then you also used a regular brush in the oil paint. So I love that the use of technique, and it's also beautiful your use of sheen and matte. So you're obviously using different mediums in play in the oil paint that you use. Can you tell us about that and the technique that you employed?
Well, a lot of times in the background or elements that are not directly the subject, I like to be looser in my approach and use a palette knife with a wax medium that gives it the texture and the matte finish. And I love how it works in relation to a very flat, smooth surface that tends to have a higher sheen.
And depending on where you're looking at and how the light's hitting it, it shimmers or it recedes.
Right.
I love that. I also just love how the fence goes from the back left into the front, off to the front right. And it's just, the composition is just, frames her beautifully. And her gaze, again, it's just sweet.
And in this painting, I was working on it at the time of George Floyd's murder. And I kept hearing the chant of, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe." And it's the same as being in a gas chamber. I wanted to give her all the air possible.
And in terms of LEDI and the looking reflexively backward to the Holocaust and Jews and how the extermination of Jews, and we look at it today with Black Lives Matter, it doesn't really matter if there's injustice anywhere, there's injustice everywhere. And whether it's Jews that are being exterminated or blacks in America right now, it's critical to stop racism or anti-Semitism, and that's part of what we're trying to do here with our project LEDI.
Absolutely.